Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's edition of Beyond the Ordinary Show. And y'all, we have my dear friend, Anna Maria Vasquez, and we're going to be talking about moon wisdom, working with the magic of the moon. So, what does that entail? Well, according to Anna Maria, and I believe Anna Maria, you'll never look at the moon the same. We're going to talk about the very specific energies behind each phase of the lunar cycles, working with the moon, how to sharpen your intuition as well as receive spiritual wisdom and insight. And we're going to get into what the ancients knew as scholars about harnessing moon wisdom and so much more. So it's going to be a full call. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to receive a lot. We're going to open to live Q&A. So if you want to ask your personal question, raise your hand, type it into the chat box. If you have a question and a little shy, or maybe listening to the replay, you can trust that the questions asked always seem to serve the group. Um, it just happens to work out that way. And we'll get into the special offer a little bit later on the call also, but of course, Moon Wisdom is going to be honored. There's going to be an amazing program that Anna Maria has put together, and there's also an opportunity for having an individual private session with Anna Maria, which is always just so amazingly insightful and impactful. So again, the call is going to be full. It's going to be amazing. If you're not familiar with Anna Maria, she is one of the most amazing intuitives that I know. Her integrity cannot be surpassed by anybody. The vision that she brings in because of that integrity and the wisdom is impeccable. She's a multi-sensory animal and nature intuitive. She's a reader who lifts the veil between what's happening in the 3D world and the energetic patterns behind it. And so through teaching, speaking, and sessions, her profound connection with the natural world sources her in helping you understand the message that are coming to you from animals, nature, also while unpacking your intuitive backpack. And it's with that introduction, Anna Maria, that again, I want to welcome you back home to Beyond the Ordinary Show. We've been doing this together for such a long time. Thank you so much.
Well, right, like soul brother, soul sister, and whenever we get the opportunity to be together, the energetics, right? I was saying right before
Yeah.
this, our energetic ping pong game with each other during these shows is phenomenal. And even in between, right? We will go long stretches of time where we're not able to connect, and then we connect and we just pick up
Like,
right where
boom.
we left off. So it's so phenomenal. And I just love your tribe. They bring their authentic selves, and it's always the divine right people who show up. And so I don't expect this to be any different. It's those folks who really feel that connection to the natural realm, right? There's
Yeah.
so many folks who talk about the moon from like the astrology and the astrological piece, and definitely include that information, but my wheelhouse is with our connection to nature and how it sources us in embodying here on this planet and working with all these phenomenal allies that we have deemed just a backdrop. And the moon herself is definitely included in that group. And we
Yeah.
are going to just shine some of that moonlight on us here today. And I'm excited to see what comes through for everybody.
I'm excited what's going to come through also. And I want to be a little controversial at first because it's coming up in my consciousness. And I'll say controversial, but I want to gleam into your intelligence and your wisdom and how you work with the moon. Because there's thoughts out there that the moon is a fabricated satellite to put up there to bring distortion and it's supposed to throw everything off. And what's your awareness about the natural order of the moon, about
Yeah.
how it really serves us?
Well, here's the thing, right? Like the way that it would. So let me start first by saying I always follow love, right? Like I will not be trapped into, right, fear pretending to be love because there's a lot of folks, bless their hearts, right, that are out there peddling fear on different topics. And the moon is no different topic. I'm so glad you brought it up because it's been brought up to me before too. And when we look at, I love hanging out in that spot where science meets spirituality. And so I'm always looking at the science. I'm always looking at the reports, the journals, but I'm also tapping into the energy. I'm talking, multidimensionally and even intergalactically, right? With my team, with other teams that can share this information. And when you look at the science for the moon, I got to tell you, right? It doesn't really add up. It's a good theory. And that's the thing. There's a lot of theories. Some of them are more alternative than others. But there is this thing that the moon just happens to be in the right place at the right time to support life on this planet, right? If the moon was a little bit further or a little bit closer or not there at all, we wouldn't have the seasons. It's
Yeah.
really, really wacky. And the way that things would have to line up in happenstance, the multiple layers that would have to happen for that to just happen, it
Mhm.
makes anybody who is a critical thinker go, huh, right? So the thing is that there are all different energies in the world, right? There are high energies, there are low energies, there are, if for lack of a more primitive word, good and evil kinds of feelings and energies. And it's not for us to be in the fight against, right? Like that's not love. That love isn't about a fight. What we're called to do is to harness energies, harness harmonics, harness resonance, and utilize it in our trajectory, right? Which for anyone gathered on this is heart based. And so I will tell you, is there a possibility that some nefarious entities have taken over the moon? It's just as possible as the moon showing up there in the right place at the right time. But here's what I know about energy: it doesn't matter how somebody puts it out and what their intention is. Myself and everybody listening in here, as infinite beings embodied on this planet, we can and are called to transmute and transcend that, almost like these big qigong masters, right? Like the energy comes at us. It doesn't matter if they were meaning it to take us out. You get in front of that energy, you harness it, and you redirect it, right? Like stop giving your power away to everybody that's got a theory about something. Listen, connect in. This is what I'm talking about. Things are changing big time in the world. Things are being revealed, and it's causing the waves, to go up and down. And we're being called to navigate these waves at a different level and a different mastery than we ever have before. And it requires us returning to nature. So, regardless of if there's some nefarious base in the moon, the fact of the matter of where the moon is and its harmonics, its frequency, and its resonance absolutely supports life on this planet. It controls and impacts and affects the water on the planet from within the earth, in the soil, within our bodies, right? We're 80%. So I'm not going to run around being afraid of moonbeams and nefarious entities, right? I'm going to go soak up those moonbeams and I'm going to direct them, because intention is our superpower as humans. And we poo poo it. We give it away. Again, we give our power away so much all the time. And the litmus test that I use is it love or is it fear trying to pretend like it's love?
Mhm. Agreed. Agreed. And if you're going to put something out there in that way, present good facts to support it. Present good facts to support it. Not just I know and I know better. And the air of arrogance, people confuse for so much authority.
Yes. And
And
the
it's
truth
not the
is
case.
anybody who says they know for sure, for sure, for sure, I'm like, that's really interesting, because this life is the great mystery. And there are so many mysteries, and we can be guided and we need to be guided and in alignment. And that's how working with the moon, right, helps us lean into these cycles, read into these cycles, ride these waves, and receive divine guidance so that we're not misled in any of these different ways. So I always
Yeah,
say if people are just keeping us scared, then that's not my channel. I'm going to turn the channel.
I love that. And what's also happening in relevance to this is that we are going through cycles. And again, the timing for Anna Marie to be on today, this wasn't planned on purpose, but the astrology and the astronomy of what's happening now and these phases that we're going through and into, I feel are I don't feel, I know. They're refining all of us to more clarity, to more authority, to more sovereignty. And then what we do with that sovereignty for the benefit of not only ourselves, but for the collective, it's really what's emerging. So let's talk about the cycle that we're in right now, because we're ending, wait, we've just entered this full moon cycle just now, and we're ending an eclipse cycle as well. Tell us about how you're working with the moon during these cycles and how anybody listening can empower themselves with this awareness.
Yeah, we are in the cosmic gumbo right now, right? Like it's all going on at once and it's all simmering and sauteing and bubbling at once.
Mhm.
We just left eclipse season, right? And we started it with, there were two eclipses this past eclipse season, and we have eclipses all the time, right? We just aren't always in a space where it's going to come right through our backyard like it did this year for those of us in North America. So we started it with a lunar eclipse, a full moon lunar eclipse. And that really started having us look back. And it started bringing up things from the past, right? This was at the end of March. And I was seeing it in my private sessions. People were like, I thought I'd done dealt with that already. Like, why is it back? And it was
Mm,
bringing up all this stuff. And it was really asking for us to bring forgiveness, not to everyone else, but to ourselves, right?
mm,
For those times that we threw ourselves under the bus, the times we gave our power away, the times we stayed small, like bringing that forgiveness. And then that energy was holding us until that new moon eclipse on April 8th, or the solar eclipse on in the new moon on April 8th. And what that was a part of was not just this eclipse season, right? Which deals with this season and this year, but it was happening in Aries. And it was also happening at a bigger cosmological level about cycles that we've completed, that we're going into. And so, cosmological cycles that are way bigger than any of us will ever experience, but we have experienced them over past lifetimes. So this was really the big galactic cosmic reset. And
mm.
so for us, it's like the way that it's set up. And then also notice that we've been in Mercury retrograde. We're going to come out of that. Mercury will go direct tomorrow, I believe it is. And this has created such a divine alignment that is like the divine setup for us to have positive change. Well, to have change, what direction it goes is up to us, right?
That's
Like, y'all are
right.
powerful creators. What are you going to do with
Yes.
this? Are you going to create more of the same, or are you going to choose something different? But when I tell you, you couldn't have a better slate to start with than what we're in right now. And it feels intense. I get it, right? Like I'm right alongside you guys riding these waves, but it is such a divine setup. And for those of us who get intention and get that focused intention for positive change and coming from love, we are right on the precipice of all of those manifestations really coming into fruition, and for us to create a different life, right? That life that we're dreaming of, that regardless of what the collective is doing, that doesn't even matter, right? Unless you're trying to include that in your recipe, but to really create on a high, high level. And so, what better time than to pay attention to nature? And one of the easiest ways is the
Mm,
moon. Even people who live in cities with, high light pollution, they still can see the moon during different phases. It's phenomenal. And so to not need any other equipment or anything, right? To go in and start to pay attention. What's the moon doing? How am I feeling? Because there are times we blame ourselves when there are other forces going on. And again, it's not to trip us up, but to open us up to a different possibility. And we just miss it because we're human.
right. So you talk about there being very specific energetics behind each phase of the lunar cycle. Do you want to go through some of them and let us know how we can possibly work with it?
Yeah, everybody gets the new moon and the full moon, right? Like it's like after a while, everybody talks about those. So I'm not going to touch on those that much. But the other phases that we kind of forget, right? We're like, oh, it's the new moon. Set your intentions. This is great, right? That's wonderful. And then, oh, it's the full moon, right? Like, see what's illuminated and watch for the shadows and what's coming into fruition and what are you learning about that? But what we forget about, because there's 8 phases, right? And that's just 2 of them that we focus on so intently. But I will tell you, the quarter moons, right? When the moon looks like it's half, right?
Hmm.
There's the first quarter and there's the last quarter. That angle, that right angle that creates that halfness in the moon, there's some potency in the geometry of that. And then the energy, the harmonics, right? Because the moon is all about harmonics, frequency, and resonance.
Hmm.
And when we add the element of light, right, which is the sun bouncing off of the moon, um, when we add that in, topped with the geometry that the moon goes through when it is, and our visibility of the moon and what amount of light is shining on us during those different phases, it starts to create, you start to understand why you're affected by the moon. So
Hmm.
when we're in that first and last quarter, there's like a deep itch or an irritation is usually how it shows up for most people. And we're like, "Rah, rah, 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 rah," we're kind of crabby and we're just kind of everything people do and say is kind of irritating to us. And we assume it's like, well, I don't know why these people are tap dancing on my last nerve, right? But what we know, right, from a higher perspective is pay attention. It's calling for inspired action. And the energy of that quarter moon, coupled again, the resonance, the harmonics, the frequency, the sacred geometry of that 90-degree angle creates the perfect energetic setup for you to shift things and to have some boosting, right? An amplification of that intention. So if I'm getting irritated with my partner, right, during what, and I'm like check a moon cycle, right, and see where we're at, and I see it's that. It's more than just the interpersonal dynamics. There's
Hmm.
something bigger being called for me to look at. Where are those points of irritation in my life? And what do I need to shift in an inspired way that's going to change that? That's going to call in different possibilities. But the first thing is to just be aware of it. If we just go through the cycles and we don't notice and we're like, oh, the moon kept me awake or, whatever, and we don't go any deeper than that, we're missing out on this amazing ally that helps us ride the waves each month through
Hmm.
every sign in the astrology, right? Like it's amazing how the moon is set up and how it affects us on so many different levels.
Well, yeah, there's a few things that come up for me, and it's first of all, we're so busy. We're doing all these other things. Okay, who has time to chart the moon now? That's another thing to do. And if we do, are you suggesting that we go into ceremony or we set an altar, work with crystals, work with incense, anointing oils? How can we make this something that we can have intimacy with, but also make it practical for our daily lives?
Thank you, right? Like we need one more friggin' thing in our life.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
totally get that. And I am the kind of teacher and the kind of person that is not about rules like you have to do this or you can't do this or like and I come from right like teachers that did have very
Mhm.
specific rules and I had to fly straight, right? And comply. But the deeper I got into the energy, what I found again, it's our intentions.
Mm.
And when this density, this dimension, this planet is so dense. And I will tell you that all the allies, right, the interdimensional allies, they get it. They get how hard this can be, how difficult this embodiment can be when we don't remember everything, right? The more we remember, we kind of get this template and we get this flow and we get moving. So, what I say is any part of that spectrum is fine. If you're gonna just start like, oh, I'm gonna notice, okay, so what did Anna Maria say the waxing crescent moon was about, or what animal is associated with that, right? Because the animal people in my tribe, they're like, oh, right, full moon, wolf. Okay, I love wolves. Let me just connect, let me go out and howl, let me do those things. And then we've got folks that go all the way through, right? Like they know in my course I provide a moon calendar, of course, so then there are folks who go all the way through and they're like, okay, today the moon is in this stage, it's this animal that I'd be working with, we're in this astrology, I'm going to do a ritual, all the way to the way down to the folks that just are catching it when they remember to do it, right? Because it's really always all of this knowledge is about building a muscle. We take in what sources us. There's no shoulds. As soon as we start shoulding on ourselves, right, we
Mhm.
are on the wrong track and we need to take a breath because we're supposed to be having fun, right? Like my team reminds me of that all the time. Like, hey,
Yeah.
sweetie, pull your shoulders down, right? And unfurrow your brow. This is supposed to be fun. And so I never want to should on anyone. And so as much as you want to take in or as little, I'm there to guide you. I've got, these guideposts, this information, as much as you want to take in. Um, that's how I guide and coach people and get them to unpack because, right, like whenever have we done well when people forced us to do something and to do it a certain way? Almost never for me.
Yeah. How do you integrate into the readings that you do for your clients, this wisdom from the moon? And I want to get into what the ancients knew, and I want to clarify ancients. But first, it's like, how are you working with this as far as what you're receiving to be able to translate it psychically or energetically for people who are showing up in private sessions?
Yeah, everything that I do is really intuitive energy tracking, right? So I pay attention to the signs and symbols. And since my wheelhouse, right, is animals in nature, that's what I'm paying attention to. So when I'm going into a private session with someone, like a regular private session, we always start with certain natural realm allies that are showing up that kind of set the stage. And almost always, the moon, right? What phase is it in, or a certain aspect, or something to do with the moon will come through. I'm really well known for doing these mini readings at the ends of, either appearances or classes or live broadcasts. And again, the moon almost always shows up in there, just kind of like we've got our animal spirit guides that come through and give us information, or the trees or the rocks. So very similar in that way. Now I do connected to, right, the moon wisdom is a private session where we look at a person's specific moon wisdom chart, which is based on your rising sign, right? Like where was the moon when you were born? So based on your date of birth and the place, we can find all that information. And then what we know is it's like a perpetual calendar. So every January, every February, every March, there will be certain aspects that, according to where the moon is, supports you best, right? Like every month, we've got a bajillion places that we could put our direction. But once we know like where these cosmic alignments are, we can say, oh, this is my interpersonal. This is the month to look at interpersonal
Mm,
aspects. And I'm going to get the most mileage if I focus my attention there. And then, of course, I can never just leave it there, right? Like, I got to take it to the next level. And well, what plant intelligence wants to source you, right? Like, I love
nice.
essential oils. So, what is it? Is it, maybe it's lavender and it's coming through for your crown chakra, but you'll have a calendar, you'll have a chart where every January of every year, every November, you can look at and you know where to focus and you know which plant intelligence to work with and the chakras and all these cosmic
Mm.
helpers, right? That assist us and are there for us when we feel like we're all alone.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. And again, there's an alchemy to it. It's really this component, and it's something that the ancient scholars worked with. They worked and they harnessed the wisdom of the moon. And I love that you're calling it ancient scholars, because we get so tripped up and say, this is what the ancients knew. Well, there are some ancients that weren't the sharpest tools in the shed,
Mm.
right? So really to bring awareness and to clarify and to choose who we're tuning into. Because if we put a broad statement out there, it's I just want to connect with guides that are out there. It's like you don't know who you're gonna get sometimes.
It's like
Um,
going into a bus station and asking for financial advice, right?
good analogy. And again, and I want to be that specific and that direct, because we are being called into a period of and being guided into a period of refinement. But that also comes with our capacity to create from that refinement, to be more specific, to be in discernment and an awareness of what we want to and choose to create with. Um,
Absolutely. Be in your power. Again, we give
yeah.
our power away to everybody else. And with the ancients, right? You talk about that. Yeah, not every ancient was, this one to put on the pedestal. There were some that, their genes didn't go on for different reasons, or
I
they
love
did.
my Uncle Oscar, but man, he's gone. But no, thank you.
Right.
It's like, thank you for the advice, but I love you and I'll wait for somebody else, right? It's
Yeah. And we also were at a different time. I mean, again, depending which period we're focusing on,
Right.
but where there were specific people in the tribes that were in the listening, that had access to the wisdom, that
Hmm.
had the direct connection. And, even some lineages today still teach that the information is only for specific people. I am of the belief, and from everything that all of nature has shared with me, that it's time that we step out of that, right? We're no longer needing to go be on the mountaintop and be that guru up that sits away from everyone.
Hmm.
This is that cycle where we are integrating it, right? We're the modern day mystics. And so it's about, right, every family having that person that is in there to listen, and really moving towards everybody learning how to listen for themselves. But
Hmm.
we are really pretty disconnected from that at this point. So it's time for us to connect in and always know what you're connecting to, right? Like, there are times that I hear something, I'm like, oh boy, that's dangerous. You live on the edge.
Yeah, it's like, let me know what your experience is like after you receive
Let me
that.
know how that goes.
I'll stand and watch. Um, so what did the ancient scholars know about harnessing the power of the moon?
Well, first of all, they understood, right? Like, and this is what doesn't even make sense. D- Yeah, they could see a lot more of the night sky just because they didn't have the
The
light
white light,
pollution
yeah,
that
yeah.
we
The light
have
pollution, yeah.
today. But even being able, I live in a dark sky area, and even being able to see the whole sky, it is astounding, first of all, that they knew about all of the astrological signs and that it moved through, right? In one moon cycle, right? From new moon all the way through the cycle full and coming back down to the new one, we go through every single astrological sign. It's amazing. You spend about 2 days in each one. So you can
Mhm.
imagine how every couple days the energy is shifting. It's
Wow.
not just us feeling like weirdos, right? There are other things going on. And when we pay attention to that, we learned. They also learned from that, like the seasons that were coming. Where did things set at certain times? Now, granted, we at when it gets dark, we go in our house and we binge watch TV, right? So we have no clue what's happening in that night sky. And these were people, tribal people that were outside watching the night sky all the time. And then, just like in every society, there are those who are drawn to go even further, but they learned how to build, even, right? Whether it was stone circles, whether it was temples, or sacred spaces, they would do them not just based off of the sun, but also off of the moon. In fact, I was just reading an article today that they're saying they believe Stonehenge actually may have been more of a lunar space, which it's just so funny because they keep going back and forth on this. And those of us who have spent any time in those spaces, we know it was all of it, right? Because that's the whole experience. You don't just work with the moon or the sun
Yeah.
or this constellation or this season. It's really about us because we are nature, being a part of that, being immersed in those cycles.
Mm.
And the way back to ourselves is through connecting with those cycles so that we remember who we truly be, and we're not so easily pulled off our center, right? It gives us a focus. It
Mhm.
gives us some consistency because that moon's always there, no matter what phase it's in.
And you're right. I mean, can you imagine tracking all those constellations and the cycles? I mean, we take it for granted sometimes, but the attention to detail, the attention to detail and the vision that the ancients have, we've got instruments, you and
Yes.
I, even with whatever instruments we have,
Yeah.
it's really a miracle.
It is, and there's so much questioning going on in terms of dating of different archaeological sites,
Hmm.
and right, like we pretty much can just know that it's older than what they're saying it is. And when you go back that far, even if you just went back 5,000 years, which is like nothing and really just the tip of the iceberg, just the fact that they knew what they knew and the way that they were able to do their astro architecture based on that was phenomenal. And
Yeah.
again, following the cycles and knowing that it affects us. I mean, even, I live in ranch country out in Colorado, and even the farmers and the ranchers know to follow the moon cycles for different things, right? Like people know you plant on a dark moon because of the way that the water is affected by the moon. And I mean, even myself, right? When I'm getting my hair trimmed, my beautician knows we look at the moon phases because I'm
Mhm.
only going to do that during a new moon because I want more growth. I want more strength. If you're someone who keeps a short hairstyle and you don't want a lot of growth, well, then you are going to be doing that now during the full moon. So there are
Mm.
practical applications to working with the moon in addition to energetic applications. So it's just, again, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go?
Right, right. Amazing. Hey, y'all, I want to get into Q&As pretty
Mm.
soon. So if you guys want to ask questions, raise your hand, type your questions into the chat box. We're going to get into the special offer in just a little bit as well. Um, I want to ask you though, Anna Maria, so working with these cycles and with these phases and the way that you're teaching this, what are you seeing that your clients, or it's like, how are your clients benefiting from this awareness? What's been your experience with that?
Yeah, you know what I feel like it is how when we're learning how to ride a bike and we have training wheels on there, right? Because we can't quite keep our balance, we can't quite keep our focus. We got to pedal, we got to brake, we got to steer, and we can't do it all at once. So we have those training wheels. I feel like all of our allies in the natural realm act as that for us. And I feel like the moon is part of that because what I've seen from the folks who really go in, even if they start with, well, I'm just going to pay attention once in a while, the deeper
Mm,
they go in, the more they start to see the resonance. Oh my goodness. Yes. When, that gibbous moon is there, it's not quite full. I can start to feel energy amping up in my own life, in my relationships, in my dream time, whatever it may be. But what I've noticed is it's like this cosmic bait and switch to get us to focus, to get us to bring consciousness, to get us to bring intention. So we pay attention to the moon cycle and then we turn it within us and we're able to start to see, right? You only have to experience a few of those quarter moons to start to say, huh, I guess I'm not just ornery, right? Like it's not just me. And right, like for many eons, our moon cycle as women, it actually also affects men too. They just don't have the physical evidence of that happening the way that women do during moon time. But even after we've left that mooning kind of time, we still are affected. And so, what I've seen with folks is this consciousness and this intention, and really a slowing down because we're so manic in our modern day mind and we're running a million miles an hour, 27 things at once. I mean, like the tabs on my computer behind,
same. Yeah.
right? Like way too many. I'll never get to all of them again. And so, but when we've got these moments with nature, right? Just like we do with our animals, just like we do with the trees and the plants, when we bring in that moon that affects all of us, right? The trees, the plants,
Mhm.
ourselves, we're able to bring another level of focus. We're able to bring it in and anchor that in another way and really anchor in our humanness, right? There's this huge push to abandon our humanness and take on technology, within our humanness, and everything that we can do in technology is it's a pale duplicate of what we can do as humans, but we've
Mhm.
forgotten. And the more that we, go that other route, it's more like we need technology to enhance us, not to replace us.
Right, right. With these moon cycles also, do you find that women get more specifically affected because of their moon cycles and the different stages that they go with ovulation and what comes through? And well, let's just stop there because it can be a super deep discussion and perhaps we can just go to this part of it. Yeah.
Well, what I've learned, right, is the moon, it affects our emotions. So people who are more in touch with or affected by their emotions are going to feel it more again, right, regardless of gender, or
Mhm.
biological identity. Uh, and it does affect men, but they may not notice those things as much, especially when we look at cellular memory and coming even up through our lineages, right?
Mm,
Like the women in even the tribal settings were the ones who were paying attention to those different cycles in terms of the moon, for different reasons, right? And then we have our own what we call moon cycle. And so I feel like there has been more of a training maybe for women, but that
mhm,
the energy is very affected for both men and women. And so even well, I mean, right, just think about all the artists that have been inspired or had the moon as a muse, right? Whether they are, a songwriter or a poet or um some other kind of artist in some format. So, and I find that when men work with the moon and just the basic cycles of the moon, because right, like some people the full moon energizes them and other people it depletes them, right? Like it really like sucks the energy from them. So we each have to learn because each of us are individuals. That's why it's important that we track what's happening for me during the dark moon, what's happening for me, when it's in that balsamic phase. And what I've found is women tend to lean into those cycles more naturally because they're
mhm,
already used to a biological cycle and rhythm. And if we pay attention, also, right, I was someone when I was much younger was much more affected by my moon cycle and not in a good way, right? It was really overwhelming for me and I didn't understand it. Once I started to understand energy and the mechanics of energy, I could ride those waves differently. And I understood none of it is to trip us up or because we're wrong or something's broken. It's rather to wake us up to something. And I didn't understand my own energy, my own potency. And so once I understood that, I could ride all of the waves much differently, right? Like what used to really rock my world, it takes a lot more to do that at this stage of the game.
mm. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for answering that. Let's go ahead and get into some Q&A, and we'll get into the special offer in a little bit. Y'all, again, it's the program that Anna Maria has for us is amazing to help us really learn to work with these cycles, but also the opportunity to have that and a reading with Anna Maria is part of the special offer as well. So the link's in the chat box. We'll get to it in detail in a little bit, but let's start with Q&A. And Lucy, let's start with you. If I can get you to unmute your microphone, please.
Hi, Anna Maria.
Yay, Lucy.
Mhm.
Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Hi, John. It's so
Hello.
good to see you.
Mm,
You've brought up so many questions, and the thing that hit me the most was that Tuesday was the full moon. And I took my son for a haircut on Monday, and I'm saying to myself, oh my Lord, what did I do to my son?
mm,
But at
Hmm.
the same time, on the weekend, I felt different. I felt, like you say, like an irritation, and I sense a change is coming, and I can't place my finger on that. But at the same time, as the ladies in the group would say, just go with the flow.
mm.
My question is, I'm wondering what moon phase was I born into to just, I guess, sit with it and go with it?
Yeah, so there's actually a couple different things in here. So anybody can find which moon phase they were born into. So right, so you look up and if you do my course, I give you a link, right? Just go to that instead of having to try and look it up, but just look up rising sign because your rising sign is going to tell you what phase. You can also, right, if you go to like moongiant.com or something, you can look up exactly where the moon was when you were born, right, based on your birth date. So there are these different things, and then we can look at that, right? So if somebody was born in a balsamic phase, right, which is when the moon is just ready, it's the last crescent before it goes into the new moon. If somebody is born there, that balsamic phase is about rest and healing. So they're going to have a lot of things in their lifetime that come up and teach them or remind them about rest and healing versus those of us who were born in a full moon, right? Like it's about shining your light. It's about illuminating and then even pointing out the shadows. So you'll want to look up, right? Like what specific moon phase, but I can tell you energetically, the one that is coming up for you is the waxing crescent moon. So we've got the new moon, right? The moon is dark. And then we get the little sliver, the little crescent, right? Or the Cheshire cat grin, and on its way to getting bigger. That's the one that your team is calling for you to be focused on, because that's the one where after we've set our intentions, right? At the new moon, we set an intention. At that, in the next week, right? All of a sudden we're like, oh my God, what did I do? What's happening? Blah, blah, and it's asking us to pay attention to our why. Why did you set that first intention in the first place? To anchor in, right? Because once we go out in the world and everybody questions us, well, then we're not so sure anymore. So for you, it's definitely that waxing crescent moon that's coming through. And what we're looking at for you in terms of actually what's coming through, I was going to go one direction and your team pulled you back. In April, right? Your team is always, and I just let them boss me around because they know best. But this month, right? Each month there's a different animal that rules the moon. And this month is hawk. So April is hawk. And hawk is inviting you to get a different perspective, right? Because we've spent our whole life thinking, I'm doing it wrong. I've got it wrong. I'm not doing it right. Everybody else knows better. And that couldn't be further from the truth for you. So Hawk's inviting you to get a different perspective on this. Mwah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Listen, it's
Thank
good to see
you.
you. Thank you.
Same here.
All right, let's continue. C. Gehring, welcome to the call.
Hi there.
Hi.
How are you?
Dude, happy to see you on the call. What is your question
Nice
for
to
me?
see you.
Yeah.
I do. Gosh, my husband and I ride these waves, and that makes so much sense with the moon. But how do so I'm really interested in doing all this, and he's not interested in all. So how do I know when it's a wave or when it's just who he is?
Well, that's right. Like how we would track it for ourselves, right? So, like in the course in the PDF, I've got tracking sheets, right? And I encourage
Right.
you to make different copies so that you can just go through it for like a 6-month period. And again, don't like drive yourself nuts.
Right.
When you catch it, when you think of it, right? Leave it out on your bedstand or whatever, and then just make a journal entry, just like yourself. You're gonna, and for you, it's almost like you're doing a laboratory experiment, because for yourself, you've got a lot more feedback. But
Right.
put on your scientific lab coat and say, okay, this is the full moon, and I've noticed in the last couple of days he's getting a little squirrely, right?
Yeah.
And he's normally pretty even keeled, and just make the notes. But you got to
Okay.
catch it, right? We got to get repeatable data. This is where the scientific method does help. So if you notice over the course of 3-4 months, man, every quarter moon, whether it's on the waxing or the waning,
Meaning.
we start to argue. Or he
Yeah.
seems
Or
to fight with
he gets just, yeah.
like
Mhm.
just notice. And then what will happen, right? When we know that, right? Like I always liken it to when we get a rescue animal. We know they got quirks. We know they've been
Right.
through stuff. So we're more patient,
I'm
right?
always doing, yeah, I do
Yeah.
rescue all the time. So.
Exactly. So you know what I'm saying? Whereas with our partner, we're like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Why is great. But once we start to notice, oh, right. Oh, when they're hungry or tired, they get it, a little edgy, than I know, right? I'm going to give them a little more
Right.
compassion.
Okay.
But when we add in the moon cycles, we can start to see, oh, right. The moon
Okay.
energizes me, but it completely depletes him.
Yeah. Got
So,
it.
we can be with it in a different way. So you do it more from an observer standpoint than him necessarily
it.
participating.
Perfect. Perfect. And does that change? Does that change with age? I mean, I know that in like for the women thing, yeah, I'm in menopause or whatever, and so that's a whole different, right? But from your 30s to your
But
50s
I've
to your
seen more than just age. I mean, I think there's a natural progression, right? We mellow out a little bit more as we age, but I feel like it has more to do with consciousness, right? The
Okay.
more consciousness people bring in, the more they ride those waves with more ease, right? It's none of us get
Right.
away from it, right? There's no
Yeah.
spiritual life insurance that stops any of it from happening.
Right.
But the way we're going to interact is going to be differently. And so again, right? Like how much latitude have we been giving ourselves in this Mercury retrograde, full moon, eclipse, post eclipse time? We're like,
Mhm.
whoa, and let me give a little extra time in case technology doesn't work right or whatever.
Mhm.
We
Right.
have a different level of consciousness that we bring to it, awareness, mindfulness.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Last question. My moon is in the same sign, so I'm a Gemini through and through, and my moon is in Gemini. Does that do anything?
And I think you
Makes
may
me a
want a
little bit.
reading with Anna Maria because you got a lot of
Yeah, to
questions.
Okay.
take a look at that.
Okay, yeah.
For
All
sure.
right. Perfect. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for your answers and your time.
Mhm.
So nice to hear you.
Absolutely. So nice
Okay.
to meet you.
Blessings.
And
Bye-bye.
something that I want to invite also is so we can get into why someone else is in another pattern. Why are they coming up in that? And why perhaps we're in a particular pattern. And all these patterns are showing just particularly because of that. We're in patterns. We're evolving beyond those patterns. And so if we're looking for something because we just want to make sense so that we can feel more safety within ourselves, that's extremely valuable, of course. But then the invitation as you're evolving in consciousness within yourself and humanity's evolving, and we're really being called to be in more intimate connection with nature, which means also being responsible with nature,
Mm-hmm.
balance. We're learning how to come into a truth balance within ourselves. So even with all these things, even if someone else is triggering us because they're going through whatever phase they're going through in their moon, it's something that we get to transform through. And perhaps it's more patience, perhaps it's more discernment, perhaps it's more speaking up for ourselves. That's unique to everybody. But like Anna Maria started off the call today, is it in love? Because if it's in trying to manipulate a particular outcome because of a belief that isn't substantiated, and let's really look and refine because we're bringing that consciousness, we're creating from whatever consciousness we're choosing to. And are we choosing to create it just out of safety, trying to control someone so that we can feel better about ourselves? Are we doing it really because we're really committed and devoted to evolving for ourselves, evolving because we truly love other people, and that automatically ripples out into the love for the collective and humanity.
Yeah.
Um,
And everything's a mirror, right?
mhm.
Like I love it when I have an excuse to blame somebody else, right? It really never holds up. It doesn't ever hold water, right? Like for 2 seconds when I'm like wallowing or something. But the
Mhm.
truth is, and this has come up so many times this week in private sessions, right? It's like, gosh, I've done all this work and rah, 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 rah. And I mean, even Deepak Chopra said it, if you think you're so evolved, if you think you've ascended so much, go spend some time with your family, right? They will trigger that stuff in a minute and all of a sudden we'll feel inadequate, and it's not for that reason, but those things are coming up, those triggers are happening, to give us a reflection, for us to look in to see where we still have some wounds that need tending to. And when we do that, instead of looking out and we look within, we then invite that other person to come along, right? Because
Mhm.
they watch your expansion. That's an invitation. They can either join you or not. And again, everybody's contract is different, right? And they may not be on the same path as us, and it may not involve that. And they may be playing their part perfectly to help you evolve, right? Like those are the
Right.
ones that I really don't like.
And we get to play in that whole soup, that whole stew, that whole gumbo
A
you said
gumbo.
earlier. Amazing. Y'all, we're going to get into more questions, but talking about invitations, the invitation to work with Anna Maria with the special offer. The link's in the chat box. You can find the special offer at beyondtheordinaryshow.com/Anna Maria 32. It'll take you to the same page. And if you're listening on the replay, the link for the special offer will be right underneath the video where you're watching the call from here today. As you click on it, Anna Maria, would you guide everybody through what they're going to receive by participating?
Yes, absolutely. The lighting is changing like by the minute here. And I'm like, I was expecting it to do something different. So we'll just all light me up with our intentions here.
You look
So
great. It's like
thank you.
we can't tell the difference.
Okay, perfect. Good. I'll just shine my light from within a little bit more. So the first thing that I want to say, right? Again, I'm John and I, our relationship goes back so far, right? Like we were personal assistants for other people that were speakers doing this work out in the world, but both of us knowing what we wanted to do. And all of you know, right? Like John is the shining star. So, and you love him. And I love to be able to say that when you get to go behind the curtain, he's the same, right? And so I always feel, because of our deep soul connection, that I really need to bring it, right? Like even extra, when I come. So just the price point of this course, right? My courses all start typically at $300. So, and this one, right? We went back and forth on prices, and I was like, we got to go lower. We got to go lower because we got to honor this space. We got to honor this tribe. And so the course on its own is, like I said, normally 300, and we're offering it at 111. So if you are at all interested, right? And there are people that do other courses that are based more on the astrology. I do bring the astrology in, but we're really bringing in the natural realm in here and the energetics, because that's what I'm steeped in. That's what I've been taught from the natural realm, is all of the energetics. So we've got this multi-module. If you even just listen to the orientation on this course, you are going to be so far ahead of the curve on understanding the magic of the moon and the energy of the moon. And in that first module, right, I take you through, what even compelled me to do this, and how it's laid out to kind of give you guidance on how to go through it. I also include, there's a PDF and there is an audio for those of you who do want to do the rituals, right? Like I take you through an audio that explains how to do ceremony and ritual with the moon. If you want to go very basic, if you want to really get into it, right? We go through all of that. So, and then each other module takes you through a different aspect. I take you through the energy of the moon phases, right? Because like I said, each one is different, and it allows you can just go in and you don't have to listen to a whole thing. You can be like, oh, I want to know what the quarter moon is doing, the first quarter, the last quarter, the waxing crescent, the waning gibbous, and I want to learn what these are quick, right? So I give you the bite-sized information for you to go in there so that you can understand those 8 phases. Then we move into things like, because again, right, my heart is with the animals, with nature. There is animal medicine that's connected to the moon. So we look at those 8 phases. I keep, again, right, like I'm this person who takes complex things and makes them simple. It was so funny. I was someplace the other day. Oh, my naturopath. And she was like, oh, I've been rereading your book, right? And she goes, what I love is you take these complex things and you make them so simple to understand. And she was telling me about another book that she was reading that she was really interested in the topic, but it was too heady. And so I like to make things bite-sized. You take it in, you don't feel like you're behind. And of course, our connection with the animals. Each phase of the moon has a different animal that's associated with it, right? And we can work with those animals. Some of them we already know, right? Like wolf, I'm sure a lot of people already have a connection to wolf, but maybe raven you don't have as big of a connection, or owl. So you've got that then, because I couldn't just leave it at the phases. I had to look at, because again, throughout history, throughout the traditions, there are, and we know, we hear it when we just kind of even hear it in mainstream news. Oh, this is the beaver moon, or oh, this is the buck moon. Well, what I found is that has followed down through traditions, and there are a lot of overlaps in even different hemispheres, different tribes, different lineages. But I went through, based on what I was learning, based on my own lineage, and put together a moon calendar that tells you the animal that's supporting you that month with your moon work. And again, it's a calendar. We update it every year to give you, so this, once you have this course, you have it forever. And when we give you next year's calendar, it'll show you all the phases of the moon, as well as which animal is with you. So that's fun. Yeah, just alone that is super fun.
So cool.
Yeah, we talk about your natural rhythms and the moon, because each of us, it's different, right? If we're male, if we're female, what we're going through in this. And I talk and I give you practical ways, right? Like practical ways to harness this magic in your life and how to work with this, like practical 1, 2, 3 steps for doing this so that you can find your natural rhythm. As we go through, I work again a lot with stones, right? The stone beans mean so much to me, and the medicine wheel work because it connects this dimension with other dimensions. So I couldn't put together a course on the moon and not include the medicine wheel. And so
Love it.
those of you who work with the medicine wheel, you're going to love that because I lay out how the moon works with our medicine wheels that we already have. And for those of you who haven't, it's a good inspiration and to get you to open up. And I've had people remember past lives that they worked with the medicine wheel after working with this
It's
module.
powerful. It's
It
a
is.
powerful ritual. Yeah, it's amazing. If you're not familiar with it, you're gonna have fun with it and you're gonna start practicing with it. I almost guarantee it.
Yeah.
All right, we continue module 6.
Moon Lodge, right? We've talked about this several times, right? What is your moon cycle as a woman? But I also talk about moon cycle when we've stopped our menstrual cycle. What happens then? And I talk about men and their moon cycles. So this is a phenomenal, piece of information that we just don't talk about as humans, no matter what our gender is. So that's been a super helpful piece for people to understand the energy of cycles within our own biological bodies.
And module 7.
Water.
Wait, we keep going. Wow.
I know it goes, there's like a bajillion modules in here. It's great, right? Because it's all this bite-sized information for you to take in. Water and the moon. Water, the moon absolutely affects our tides. It affects where the water is in the soil. It's phenomenal. And we are 80% water. So if you think it doesn't affect you, right? Like as soon as we start to pay attention to this, things start to make more sense. Then we go into things like, right, these special moon things, eclipses, which we just went into, blue moons, super moons. What do these mean? What should we be doing during these times? Again, practical ways, not yet another thing you got to do. But again, once we have the knowledge about something, it shifts. When we get into module 9, we're hitting on those moon conspiracies, right?
Okay.
We got to talk about it. It's the
Yes.
elephant in the room. And so I talk about that and let you decide for yourself, because there's a lot of interesting information out there. And, we should never feel like we know for sure.
I love that.
Plants in the moon. Again, the farmers were onto this a long time ago about working with the moon and with plants and assisting them in their growth. Which then naturally led into hair and the moon, right? And I'm talking about even those of you who have hair in places and you are getting rid of it, right? You're waxing or shaving or whatever. Certain times, if you do that, you're going to not have to do it as often. Kind of like how I talked about when I cut my hair versus, right, my partner, he keeps his hair short. So he gets his hair done at a different time in the moon cycle than I do. So it's
I
those
love
extra
this.
fun ways that we
That is
play
cool.
practically. Yeah. And then I always, in all of my courses, I include a live group session, right? Because you've got this information, you've got questions. We'll have a live group Q&A session where we'll answer those questions, and I'll do some moon wisdom readings for folks as well. And that's coming up here at the beginning of May. So you want to get registered and get in for that. Absolutely.
Amazing. You're so generous with this. Thank you. Wait, there's still a bonus. Y'all, there's more.
There's more. I included bonuses. One of my go-to energy gals, she put together this whole thing on reclaiming the dream state, right? We can't talk about the moon without talking about the dream state. And in that astral realm, we receive so much information. But in that, she lays this out. She even talks about what to do about recurring nightmares, right? So there is practical information for us to deal with that. I also got my Zen cowboy to do some moon musings as a bonus. He is absolutely moonstruck very often. And so for him to give a little information on that. So that's just the course on its own, right? And at that incredible price, 111 versus 296, I believe is what we have it for sale on my website. And then the option to upgrade, to include a private session with me. It's so fun because this 30-minute session, I'm completely focused on you. I'm completely focused on your chart. In fact, I've worked on your chart before we sit down for that. And I take your rising sign, and I chart out which house, which essential oil, and which chakra each month of the year is going to give you the most potency, that's going to get you to be able to focus and get, I always say, the most bang for your buck, right, during that
Mhm.
month. And it's so fun because it's a perpetual calendar, right? Like every January, that's your area of focus. It's such a minimal investment for something that you're going to come back to year after year. And the price on that upgrade, it's $296 just to have a 30-minute session with me, right? Like if you
Wow.
went to go get a session, so this is, almost $50 less than that, and you get the course, right? Like it's really a no-brainer if you're resonating at all with what I'm saying. Also, most people who've worked with me, it can be 2 or 3 months before you get in on my calendar. I'm going to be opening up more spaces here in the next 6 weeks
Mm.
for those of you who are signing up now. So what you want to do is as soon as you register and you do that upgrade, you want to go in and get yourself on the calendar. And anyone who's been, yeah, I can see the heads nodding,
Oh,
knows you
yeah.
got to get in on that. And I'm giving another bonus, right? Because my mission is to help the humans remember, right? Remember, we have all these amazing allies. Remember that we have these guides, this cosmic help that we forget about. And then we're like, woe is me. Life is so hard. I can't do this, right? And this is our way out. So the more people that we can get this in the hands of, the more important. So
Mm.
every day in my own personal practice, I have my own, practices that I do, but one of the things is a series of daily energy clearings that I do. There's actually about 50 of them that I go through for myself. And for the longest time, it was just for me and my family. And I got this hit to start sharing that in a bigger way. And so
Mhm.
it is an offering that I offer where it's, I do these things for folks on a daily basis. So anybody who purchases a package, whether it's the A or B, you'll be included, but you have to buy by this Sunday at midnight. You'll be included in 30 days of my daily energy clearings for free, right? It goes in there with that.
Mhm.
So, um, it's a tremendous opportunity and an energetic boost to source you in the first 30 days that you're with that course, right? It's
Wow.
like this energetic amplification, and it's the clearings are in, like I said, there's over 50 of them that I do, and they're in every single area of your life, and of course including you going deeper with your connection with the moon. So it doesn't feel like I'm giving things away. It feels so beautiful, like a way to make it available,
Mhm.
to make it accessible to folks. And so it means a lot to be able to come and give like this in your community.
And you certainly are giving. And again, it's such a gift to be able to have access and participate in this way because your time and energy and the support and again the energies, y'all, we're really being called also to refine where we're putting our energy and why, the why behind it.
Mhm.
Um, and the alignment with the why comes in very quickly. Um, and the why can be extremely uplifting, or it can be, for lack of a better phrase right now, punishing if it's not in alignment with us in different ways. Um, so again,
We get the
thank you.
micro course adjustment really quick, right?
Yeah.
We get the feedback. We move forward and we're like, whoa, that's not the
Mhm.
right way. And so we reassess. And again, the more that we live in such a synthetic environment, right? We get up
Mhm.
when the alarm clock, not when the sun rises us, right? And then we're in these artificial boxes with artificial air and artificial light and artificial temperature. We're
Mhm.
so far removed from our natural cycles. And this is one way to bring us back into that cycle, to bring our consciousness, our intention,
Mhm.
our awareness back in rhythm with the natural world, like it was before we moved out of the woods, right?
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I hope you all participate in this special offer. Learn to work with one of the most natural elements. You've known it since birth. It's been intimate, and you get to benefit and enliven its wisdom through you. Um, and again, with Anna Maria supporting you with a live Q&A in the first package to ask questions, to go in on the Q&A, and then to go further with a 30-minute reading if you choose that, which if you do, it's a beautiful gift to yourself. Um, special offers right there for you. The link is in the chat box, or you can go to beyondtheordinaryshow.com/marketplace. And in that, you'll find Anna Maria's picture. Click on the special offer button, it'll take you right to. So you can begin receiving your modules and schedule your session with Anna Maria. So again, you'll take advantage of it. Thank you. And Anna Maria, let's continue with more Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. People can just, I mean, if they have a question about anything I've spoken about, if they just want to know what does the moon want me to know? What moon wisdom can you share? I'll feel in and see what's going on.
Amazing. What does the moon want me to know, Anna Maria? And then I'll ask
Well, for you, I have to tell you, it's the quarter moons, right? And that owl energy that's with the quarter moons that correlates with that. Owl really helps us navigate the mystery, right? So when that irritation comes up and we don't know what it's at, but we got a list of things it could be, to work with that owl energy to navigate it just more masterfully, right? We just are
Beautiful.
looking for more ease and grace in our lives. So team up with owl, especially during those quarter moons, which will be happening here not too long.
Not too long. Yeah, thank you. That's so spot on. Amazing. Thank you for that. All right, let's continue now. Ellen, let's go to you. Welcome to the call.
Hello, and
Hello.
thank you. Thank you both. I was born on a waning gibbous moon that was 6 days after a penumbral lunar eclipse and 2 days before the last quarter moon. And I wonder how Anna Maria would see that affecting my life.
Well, it meant that you didn't do anything like anybody else did. It meant that you were on your own trajectory, regardless what anybody else thought or said. Although, right, you also have that way of taking it all in and seeing the other perspectives as well. But it really means that it's calling you to go within and to listen to your own natural rhythm, your own guidance. You can take in everybody else's stuff as information, but don't base any of your decisions on outside input. Always take it in, right? Simmer it up in your own inside gumbo and then make your decision, because that internal, the way that you had that divine setup to naturally cause you to go within and listen. So stick with that, right? That stubborn streak that some people might see on the outside is actually one of your superpowers.
Thank
Amazing.
you.
Thank you for calling in. All right, let's continue here. Sonia, welcome to the call.
Yes, hi. Hi, John. Hi, Anna Marie. Thank you for having me. Yes, what's the moon wanting me to know? I've particularly the last day. I've had the sort of the last day or two, because it's different. The moon, the moon timing on the full moon is different over here in Perth, Australia, and I don't know why. I've just felt, in particular in the last day or two, that it's is talking to me, but I can't connect with what it's wanting to say.
Yeah, that's a great piece to bring up. Thank you. I love our Southern Hemisphere folks, right? Because every time we think we know, then it's like, well, unless you're in the Southern Hemisphere, then it's a little bit different. But the truth is, really what's happening in the difference between the Northern and Southern Hemispheres is our perspective of seeing the moon, right? Like when it's waning, when it's waxing, the perspective is a little bit flipped, right? Like for one of us, it looks like a D, and one of them it looks like a C, and all of those pieces. But what's coming through for you, it's interesting. It's not just that full moon kind of agitating you, but it's the shadows, right? It's bringing up, so we have the light that's cast on us or a situation, but the shadow is also there. And this is deep feminine work that you're doing, right? This is your deep divine feminine that's asking to be brought through, right? That darkness, that shadow. But there's also, right, those wounded aspects of the feminine that we've been steeped in, being brought up in this modern day society. So this is a time to look at those shadows. And what I also work with, right, since we bring in all of nature, shadow animals. which animals are there, those that bring up those strong emotions, because they can help guide you, be a guide on this. I really feel like you're being called to go deeper into your own, for lack of better word, psychic work. Not just keeping it for yourself and your friends, but doing it in a bigger way, getting that out there, because you have insights and connections and wiring that is meant to be sharing this on a bigger level.
Mm.
Thank you very much. Yes, I feel that. I feel that too.
Thank you,
I really
Sonia. Yeah.
thank you.
So let that full moon charge you up, almost like when we plug our phone in, right? We're charging it up. So you need to be using this full moon time now and going on with, what do I need to know about sharing this and tapping into my psychic abilities at a bigger level?
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Barbara. And all of us on the calls were asking these questions. It's one thing to receive this information, and that can satiate a little bit, but take it that extra step, really work with it, really be in relationship with it. It's one thing getting, oh, wow, that's interesting, but you're getting amazing information to work with and apply here. And if you apply it, you're going to notice something within yourself awakening. You just will. But again, we can do these calls for the next 11 years, but unless we apply it, we're not going to see the changes
Yes.
that
Ding,
we
ding, ding,
wish.
ding, 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 ding. And that is, I cannot say that more. Like the folks who actually do unpack their intuitive backpacks and actually step into their brilliance and actually share their light in whatever way that looks, are the ones who are actually applying it in a practical way. The people that continue to play psychic guessing games in their life, they're the ones who in 5 years, I'm going to have the same conversation with them. And all I say is just lean in, a little bit, right? Apply one thing that you learned from this call. Get the course, take yourself, just even bring yourself to the live group session and see what's going on. Because I get it, right? Like no one has a busier schedule than I do. And so you can do this, right? I always feel like the poster child, like if I can do this, you can do this.
Well,
Plus, I'm stubborn.
what's also happening, Anna Maria, is again the evolution of consciousness is guiding us back into our own sovereignty. So those places where we could sit back and have others make decisions for us to guide us, that we looked for leaders outside of us, tell me what to do and I'll do it and I'll be comfortable or I'll be okay or I'll be safe or I'll be prosperous, whatever it is, all that's coming back around. And it's being inverted back into us. Wherever we put those things on the pedestal, guess what? The pedestal is being knocked over because it wasn't sustainable. And we're all having to go and find that light, that vitality within us. And y'all can apply it now and be somewhat ahead of the curve, if you will. Go through a period of of grace and ease that is more accessible now. But again, if we wait to the last minute when things get so horrible that we have to surrender to it, it's a different mechanism that runs that show.
Yes, we don't have to do it by the 2x4 method anymore, right? Like
Mhm.
I've learned working with the moon, right? My own cycles. I can put out, right? Like my enthusiasm. That's the first thing people always talk about. Oh my God, your enthusiasm. It's so great. And it is great, right? But I've also learned I have to pull back. I have to unplug. And if I don't do it at regular intervals, guess what happens? My body does it for me, right?
Mhm.
And it
Right.
will knock me out. And I learned, right? Like, I don't need to do that. I could schedule some extra time out. I could schedule some downtime. I could be more in control of I could stand in my power,
Mhm.
right? And so we don't have to, again, being the poster child for doing it the 2x4 method way versus not doing it the 2x4 method way, I totally
Mhm.
vouch for the not 2x4 method way. And
Highly
we can
recommended.
do that, right? And everybody who hears about, right, like my story about the life tsunami, and they're like, did it have to go that way? And I'm like, no, it didn't. I could have made a different choice in very different points that would have made the transition much easier.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have
Yeah.
made my story as interesting, but
Maybe.
right, well, right, yeah.
Right.
So, but I've learned that we can lean into this in a different way, and we don't have to have that ridiculousness go on in our life.
Amazing. Sonia, thank you so much. Let's
Mhm.
continue. Barb, let's go to you now. Welcome.
Thanks for taking my call. Just about 2 hours ago, I was talking to a friend of mine, Matthew, who asked me, he was asking me about his 4-month-old cane corso puppy whose behavior just in the past week has escalated and is biting a lot. And he said, can the full moon be affecting the dog? And I said, I'm going to be listening to something on tonight about the moon. And if he gave me his permission. So I said, I'll see if I can get my call answered. Is the moon affecting the dog? Is the moon also affecting the human companions, he and his wife? And that's affecting the dog.
Well, right. So there's a couple, this is very multi-layered, like you just alluded
Yeah.
to there.
Yeah.
So first of all, we've got just the developmental stages of animals, right? Like I would suggest to him to print that out. Because seriously, they go from cute little cuddly puppy to velociraptor, right? Overnight.
Yes.
And then they return to dog state. But there are
Yes.
like actual developmental stages that you can follow. And any puppy or kitten pet parent needs to print that out so that they can follow it, right? Because otherwise we're like,
Yes.
oh, I've broken them, they're broke, something went wrong.
Yes.
But it's just a natural, just like with our kids, right? They're the
Yes.
terrible twos, they're whatever there is. But
Mhm.
also, right, our animals are affected, right? This is why the coyotes, why the canids howl at the moon. We are affected by
Yes.
it. But what we know, right, and what all of nature has taught me from the time a tree started talking to me was those animals act as messengers for us. They're reflecting something back. So where are the places, right? Again, yes, there's a 3D thing about just the teething and the time and the
Yes.
chewing.
Well,
But
he's really fighting. He's a cane corso. He's
so
going to
he's
be a
got
master.
jaw strength
So
like you
he's
wouldn't
just,
believe.
and it hurts. And
Yes.
they have a lot of stress going on with his wife's
And
health
so it's coming
issues.
back and forth, right? So
Yeah.
some of it is natural progression of what's happening in the development, but they're also so sensitive to our energy and they will pick that up. So where is that biting energy? Where are they feeling that tearing at themselves in other places, right? The health issues, the tension in the house, the money issues, all of these pieces. As we tend to that, you can't tell the animal not to take it on. I've tried a bajillion times. They won't do it. They're right. Like they're like, you got to shift your energy. Just even realizing for them to look at where else is life biting at them, right? Where else is it hurting
Yes.
to go through life? And just bringing the acknowledgement there should bring that down some.
All right,
Okay.
Barb, thank you so
Yep.
much.
Thanks.
You can guide them here and to the replay, and they can listen to the replay as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
And so we'll
And I
send
want to
it
give
later.
you something also because, right, like here you are doing other work for other people.
Yes.
So first of all, right, the first that the moon would be like is like shine the light on yourself first so that you can see for everybody else. But the new moon energy, right? Connect with rabbit energy when we come up to this next new
Okay.
moon to
Yeah.
add extra fertility to your new moon intentions.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
All right,
Absolutely.
Barbara, thank you so much for coming on. All right, let's continue. Nick, welcome. And please correct me if I pronounce your name wrong. And can you unmute your microphone, please? There you go.
Yes, thank you very much. So it's my first time on your talk, so I really appreciate it. I have a question. It seems like the future of the moon now, that soon there will be addresses on the moon. You'll have the US side, the Russian side, the Chinese side. I mean, now they are kind of fighting to, that's where they're aiming now. And to me, the moon is absolutely sacred. So I'm curious to hear Anna Maria's point of view toward now humans trying to go and populate the moon. And how does it affect the energy of the moon and the earth? And to me, it is really detrimental, but it seems like we have no control over this.
Right. That's a brilliant question, right? Like, oh my goodness, I love that you're such a deep thinker, because not everybody thinks about that. They're just like, oh, it's just happening. But it's exactly like what we're seeing on Earth, right? In the places where we are expanding in a conscious way, right? Including talking to the Earth, seeing what she wants to do with a piece of land, we're seeing very different outcomes than where we're just, that wounded masculine side that comes through and just takes over everything. It's the same thing. Now, in terms of how the moon itself would continue to affect us in our cycles, whether it's populated or not, that's not going to change. But we have to, again, I'm going to say that with a caveat, because those of us who live from the vibration of I'm the creator in my life and I direct the energy, we're not going to experience the same toxic energy maybe that other people might experience who are feeling in their victimhood and feeling victimized by what other people are choosing to do. So while, and I get this because I walk this all the time here on this planet, right? Like, I would love for people to walk differently and live differently, but the truth is everyone's on their own path. So I have to stay in my creatorship and what am I going to create in my world, and stay with that instead of being so concerned with everybody else. Because the more that I live from that alignment and be that example, it invites other people to do it too. And the people who don't choose to live like that, I can choose to include them or not to include them. So yes, we need to bring more consciousness to our expansion, but if human history dictates anything, it's probably not going to happen, right? Like, so what we need to do is set our intention and hold that space, right? Like, I don't use anything from the natural world. I collaborate. So I collaborate with the moon. Luna, what do you need me to hold for you as I'm asking you to hold energy for me? So this would be something for you to do, to connect with the moon and say, what do you need me to hold for you as humans are doing what humans are doing right now?
Hmm.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
great question. And
Brilliant.
this brings on a couple of things for me, Anna Maria, that I think it is important to discuss while we're on the topic. First of all, in nature, with all these other energies, again, we're so entrained to consume. What am I going to get from this? And so you talking about being in reciprocal relationship with these energies, it really activates, it becomes a toric field that really amplifies the intentionality of receiving and giving. It becomes an overflowing cup that becomes available, but we have to learn how to navigate with it and meet it and become attuned to it, which is so important. But of the issue of, again, this awareness and the consciousness is being imprinted in a specific area, and yes, we can have our consciousness that we bring in. Where's the point of, okay, I'm discerning that if I drop the plastic cup into the river, it's going to pollute it.
Mhm.
I'm discerning that if I'm seeing other people dropping the plastic cup, it's their free will to do it. But when is it mine to say, hey, don't drop the plastic cup in there? When is it ours to just be in the energy of following our path? But if the collective keeps dropping plastic cups, we're going to be drinking from that polluted water anyway, no matter what we hold. What's that fine line that we're
Well, right.
navigating
That is
now?
discernment. That's absolutely living in discernment. First of all, not living in fear, right? Like the fear of what if, the fear of all of those pieces, it takes us out of our power, right? When we are coming from that fear. So we don't want to make any decisions from fear, right? Like if I'm going to
Or anger.
approach somebody or not approach somebody, am I approaching them from love or am I approaching them from fear? Right. So that's how I decide, right? Like, how am I going to, when and where am I going to intervene? When and where am I going to use my voice? And it always starts first from not living in a space of fear. And I have to tell you, right? Like, yeah, the picture, when we look at the surface in the 3D, it's dire, right? Like the earth is struggling in different ways. And I also know of her amazingness and the secrets that she's still holding and keeping from us, even about fresh water supplies, things like this. And so I refuse to give my power over to the collective, whether they're saying, let's clean up the earth or let's hurt the earth or whatever. But I want to be coming from the space, always not living from fear, but coming from love. And I can make my decisions and I can vote with my dollars from that space of love. But as soon as I do something, regardless of what it is, from a place of fear, I've already undermined myself. So I have to get very clear with my energy first and then be an inspired action from there.
Beautiful. Beautiful guidance. Thank you so much. And Nick, thank you so much for your question. Y'all, the special offer of Anna Maria, the link is in the chat box. Again, it is super generous. The
I
reading
have to
and
tell you,
module.
James was like, "What are you doing?" Like he was only half listening to me when I was talking about it. And then all of a sudden he's like, "Wait, what did you just say?" I said, "Yeah, I know my business coach is going to say the same thing." But it's that space where you feel moved, right? And again, these people who are in my inner circle, they know. They just throw up their hands. They're like, "We know you're listening to something else that the rest of us aren't hearing." And
Yeah.
so, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there was definitely a meeting of a request energetically in what was put out. And again, the way you just showed up, it's like, yeah, here you go. It was really amazing. Y'all, it's a very special opportunity. I hope you take advantage of the special offer. Again, the link's in the chat box or easier website, beyondtheordinaryshow.com/marketplace. You'll find Anna Maria's picture and it'll just guide you from there. And then the link for today's replay will be sent out in the email. You can always access replays at beyondtheordinaryshow.com/replays. And as we're wrapping up tonight, yeah, I will ask you, what are you excited about that's coming up in what you're seeing and collaborating with through the crystal kingdom, the animal kingdoms, the elemental? What's their message about where we're heading and how you're collaborating with that?
Well, I have to tell you, it really is what I'm excited about. I'm seeing coming up through the scientific realm, which you can't always say that you're excited about what's coming through
Yeah.
the scientific realm because it has been co-opted in so many different ways and not necessarily in high vibrational ways. But all of the research is leading to unity consciousness. All of the research is leading to the sentience of everything on this planet, right? When they measure, they have instruments that can measure rocks that show them like they're breathing, right? And it's all about resonance. It's all about frequency. It's all about harmonics. That's the moon's jam, right? Like harmonics, resonance, and frequency. And this is the leading edge of the next frontier that we're entering in: harmonics, frequency, and resonance. And my Great Dane, he is Astro. Anyone who knows him, he's a 9-year-old Great Dane, 150 pounds of ridiculousness, right? And he's a master teacher in standing in your power. And so this piece, like, right, like, don't lose faith. It's coming. More and more people are believing the fact that people even in mainstream are talking about moon cycles, right? And they actually notice. I have some friends who work in the public sector and all of them were putting out the full moon's coming, right? Like ground yourself, be prepared. And they're thinking very differently maybe than I am or this group is thinking, but it's entering the mainstream consciousness. And it's all about standing in your power and holding your intentions, right? Our intentions as humans, that's our superpower. Don't be swayed by the fear. Don't be swayed by the rhetoric. Stay in lean further into your natural cycles, your natural rhythms, because you'll never be misguided from there. Other people will lead you astray knowingly and unknowingly, but stay in your heart and be guided. And the quickest way that I've learned is through nature, right? Whether that's the moon, the plants, the animals, the rocks, the landscapes.
Right. Beautiful. Maria, thank you so much. Again, such wisdom and just it's so practical, but so powerful. So powerful. Thank you for how you share, how you show up, your generosity. It's been an amazing call tonight.
Thank you. And again, I want to remind people, if you sign up by Sunday, right, you get included an extra
Yes.
bonus in addition to everything else, which is that you're included in my personal daily energy clearings for 30 days. You're going to get that. You'll
I
be
forgot
included.
about the bonus, the
Right.
bonus before Sunday, y'all. Definitely. God, that is huge.
Yeah. So that
Again, this
takes
special
us,
offer is
into
amazing.
May. It takes us out of this crazy gumbo that we're in. And I will tell
Mhm.
you, I say I only do the clearings once a day, but the truth is, depending on what's going on, and lately I've been doing them multiple times in the day because I just feel it, right? Or
Mhm.
somebody who's on the list, I'll feel something come through and like, oh, we got to focus on this. And so I'll just stop what I'm doing and go into some clearings. And
Mm.
it's so potent, especially when you're embarking on learning something new or taking your knowledge deeper. So for 30 days, the first 30 days of this course, for you to be in there, and it's all self-paced. You can look at it now, you can look at it next year, do what you do as you will, but know these first 30 days you're really supported. And we've got that live group session coming up within those 30 days. So
Yeah. Well, and I also love the way you broke down the modules. They're bite-sized. They're like, there's thank you for that. Because
right, because who has time? I don't have time.
right. Well, but I can receive those and I can actually ingest them instead of thinking I need to keep up with the next thing. So the assimilation that goes along with having the information coming in that way it's so helpful. So thank you for the way that you put that together as well. Yeah.
Thank you for seeing that, because I am one. I don't like to feel behind. I don't like to put that on other people where they feel behind. And that's why it's all the information's there. Go through it in the way that you see fit, right? Like I
Yeah.
would suggest listen to the orientation first, because that's going to give you the overview. And then just go where you're led, right? Maybe it's conspiracies, maybe it's your hair, maybe it's the water, maybe it's the moon lodge or the animals, but just go. It's all there. It's all yours to have. So just follow your intuition. And
Mm.
then just take a look and see where the moon is, right?
Amazing. Well, I know I'm waiting to get my haircut now, so that's like definitely got that and so much more from today's call. But wow, you're an encyclopedia. It's amazing. Thank you for your love and your consciousness and your friendship. And thank all of y'all. Y'all are amazing. Thank you for being the lights, the consciousness, the curiosity, as the wisdom that you all are. It's an honor to be here with you all. And with that, I bow to each one of you and namaste. And I look forward to seeing you on the next call. Bye, everybody.